So let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, Michael. My name is Claudia. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We are very humble and grateful that Michael Rother accepted our invitation to our show. Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Claudia. I'm happy to be with you.
Sure, no problem. Michael, so what everything that is going on in the world with the pandemic and the vaccine and little by little countries are getting out of the pandemic, how's your how's has been your life, your family, your creativity, being stuck in a place for a year without being able to go out that much
Uh,
or tour?
well, of course, the pandemic also affected my musical life in a big way. Um, I had the last concert in March last year. That was a festival in Austria. And that was already at a time when my partner, friend said, well, Michael, I don't think you should go because the figures are exploding, the infection rates are going up. I took the risk because I thought this was still a responsible thing to do. But looking back, I know it was quite a risk. And after that, all the concerts, all the tours, everything was canceled, like for, I think, nearly all the musicians. And I was lucky that Grönland Records, my label, the label that also releases Neu and Harmonia, asked me to release a second box set of my solo works. And we started talking about what to include in the box set apart from the original albums, which were obviously the first choice. And then I thought, well, I have this material in my archives, and it has been waiting so long because I was always too busy touring the world, playing all over the globe from, I don't know, China, Japan, Russia, Mexico, and Europe up and down. And unfortunately, I haven't been to the States, by the way, but
Really?
that has, well, in a long time,
I got you. Yeah.
since 2010. And that has to do with your unfortunate regulations. The administration makes it very hard for foreign musicians to enter your country to perform. It's a very unpleasant procedure. And I have fans in the US and people keep asking me to return. But with that kind of nightmare, the application process of a visa, it's so bad. I do not feel happy to come to the States. Last time, just a short excursion to that, when I had a visa, I had to leave the country on the day of the last concert. That was they were so strict, and it is nasty, I think that's what you can call it. It is very also stupid to cut a cultural exchange in that way. Anyway, coming back to what I was doing, I started working on this unreleased material, which had been in my archives for many years. And because of my busy schedule, I never had the time to concentrate, because that's what I have to do if I want to release something and work on music, new music. I need a quiet, regular schedule for the days. I can't run around and book flights and jump into a plane or train to go somewhere. And I started working on my album, which is called Dreaming, which was then released in September last year as part of the box set, and also as an individual CD and vinyl. And that kept me very busy and made me very happy because not only I was not surprised, I wouldn't say that, because I knew there was very good material waiting to be finished, but I got so much positive response to Dreaming that seems especially that album made many people happy. And so working on music just went on. Then, of course, I did some lengthy interview sessions last summer. And after that, my partner, Italian partner, and I started working on new music. So the good thing about the modern technology, which is available for musicians, the computerized, if you like, apparatus, allows it to work wherever you are, more or less. When I finished working on Dreaming, I threw my gear into my car, the live gear, which I usually take to travel around the world to present music. And I drove all the way. It was a drive of 2 days. It was quite a long drive, but driving, of course, I had the possibility of taking all the toys, all the gear, everything that I need to record new music. And I'm looking back, I'm glad that I didn't take the easy way and just hopped with a computer on a plane. So now I have all the tools I need to work, and we've been doing a lot of music. And now, even now, I'm editing the first single, which well, I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's just music goes on, and there was no time for boredom for me, luckily. There is a concert scheduled for September in Austria again, strangely. I'm not 100% sure that we can do the concert, because you may also have heard, or it's probably also the situation in the States, that Delta virus variant is around and getting stronger and seems to be more infectious and causing higher infection figures. So it's not totally sure, really. I mean, people want to have concerts, it's clear. The audience want to enjoy the situation, the live feel, and the promoters want to get busy. I guess I will do the planning for the concert as best as I can, but there's always the possibility that it has to be canceled. I guess that's all I can say at the moment.
Wow.
I'm following the development very closely, nearly all around the world. I also follow what's happening in the States after the last president had a very poor figure in that pandemic. What a crazy period that is over.
Yep,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, man. I feel the same way, so don't worry. Where are you? Let's go back to the beginning. Like, were you born like in a musical family? When you start playing, piano, guitar at the time, were you brother,
Well,
sister, your parents?
my mother was a trained classical piano player. Yeah. And she loved music with all her heart,
Yeah,
but she was born at the wrong time, I guess. And the um, bad economic situation in Germany in the 30s prevented her from fulfilling, after graduating at music school, the conservatorium, she was ready to go on stage to play classical pieces, but that was not possible. She was forced, I mean, to support her parents in that economic crisis, and then marrying my father, and with the Second World War, which hit Europe or the world, that was sort of the end of her dreams of being a professional musician. But I think that the genes, sort of, the musical mind was passed on to me.
yeah.
And I guess from my father's side, there was more the organizational talent. He worked for Lufthansa. He was a manager for Lufthansa. And so that sort of the two worlds that, or the two hearts, if you want, that beat inside my chest, and the love for music. And I tried to combine it with good planning and good organization.
Yeah, I got you. Well, beautiful, man. Well, in a way, you're doing what you like. She would have been very happy that you became a musician, you know.
Oh, she was around already quite a long time, and she saw at the beginning when I joined the school band Spirits of Sound. I was 15. My love for music. It was wonderful, really. Now, as a grown-up looking back, I know she must have been so patient and good, full of goodwill. My first steps on the guitar, plonk, plink, plonk, for hours every day. And then she always supported my wish or my desire to do music, never put any stones in my path. My father died when I was 16, or actually 15. And if he hadn't died, I guess the story could have developed in quite a different way, because the family was supposed to leave Düsseldorf, and it was sort of a step over for my father's career. And we could have moved to the States even. And so, yeah, but that's family history sort of. And when I joined Kraftwerk in 71, then started Neu in 72, and then moved to Force to start Harmonia, she followed my steps. I think she kept her fears mostly to herself, which probably most parents, or especially mothers, have when their children become musicians and follow something that fills them with joy, instead of thinking, how can I make as much money as possible in the fastest way? But luckily, she also experienced when in 1977, my first solo album came out, and there was so much success in the following years. And so I guess we never talked about that really, but I know that she was happy for me. That's the bottom line.
That's a good slide. Where before, so when you finished the equivalent of high school, gymnasium, it's called in Germany.
Yeah.
The gymnasium. And that was, how many years was between finishing high school and then your involvement in Kraftwerk? Were you in any band, and then at the time you decided, well, I don't want to go to college. Music is my thing, and I want to concentrate all my effort. And then you end up. Feel free to elaborate on how.
Yeah, I finished school with Abitur. That's the graduation. You probably know.
Yeah.
In 1969.
Yeah.
And then there was the draft to the military, which I refused. We in Germany back then, I think there's something on the draft card burning in the States. I remember during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And I refused to join the military, and there was a court hearing which I had to endure. I didn't convince the people. They were probably not willing to be convinced of my reasons. It had to be a conscience, a strong force of your conscience that prevented you from joining the military. That was the only reason, apart from severe medical problems. But of course, they didn't accept my view of world politics. I remember having a very strong discussion with these people. It was like at court, as if I were some kind of defendant, and had to explain why I had to kill this person. It was very unpleasant, but that were the times. There was this big fear. The Cold War was still in full play. We had the Russian sort of invasion of Czechoslovakia in '68, and there was this constant fear of atomic war starting, nuclear weapons being used, and the Russians crossing the border and the German river border to Poland, and suddenly you look down the barrel of a, well, you don't say barrel, but maybe you do, of a panzer, of a tank. But it was really a crazy time back then. A lot of fear. I had many bad dreams, and but no force would have made me join the military. I was so totally sure of myself. And then I was accepted as a conscientious objector, and chose a mental institute near Düsseldorf, because I was at the time also very interested in psychology. Maybe the very normal desire of young people to find out how we tick, what forces are in your mind or in your soul that lead you and make you find certain decisions. And that was, apart from being very happy and in the end also successful musician, that was such a valuable time in my life. The 1.5 years spent working with handicapped people, with people that had drug problems, that were in this mental institute for very many different reasons, and trying to add some color to the life, because back then this institute was very conservative, and the idea until that point was to just keep the people in the hospital, give them the medication and food, and that's it. And at the time, '69, there were young, what's the English word? My vocabulary is always failing me. It was a monastery, sort of, and there were young members of the monastery who had revolution in mind, like they wanted to change this, and so we were natural allies, yep. And so those were the people I worked with, and until '71. And one of the other guys who was also a conscientious objector, he was a guitar player like me. He once asked me, would you like to join me? I have this invitation to go to a studio after we were on a demonstration in the center of Düsseldorf. I don't remember the cause we were following, but there were many reasons to object to cultural and social situations in Germany, political situations. And I really just, for a few minutes or for a few moments, thought, actually I wanted to go home to meet my girlfriend after the demonstration. But then I decided, okay, well, I'll join him, although the band's name didn't ring a bell. I didn't know the band. And I thought, Kraftwerk sounds a bit funny, like silly.
That's a real, yeah.
Yeah, and so I ended up in the Kraftwerk studio, met the Kraftwerk guys, Florian Schneider. Back then his name was Schneider Eschewing. He dropped the Eschewing at some point. Ralf Hütter and Klaus Dinger, who became my partner in Neu. And I jammed with Ralf Hütter, funnily enough. And that was one of the big moments, like reaching a crossroads, because until that moment, I had fallen out of love with the music I had been doing for 6 years. Like in my first steps on the guitar, my heroes were Beatles, Kings, Stones, then later Eric Clapton, Cream, Yardbirds, Jeff Beck, and then of course Jimi Hendrix. Suddenly this apparition, this star fell from the skies. He was so special. I was a total fan, and I tried to copy as much of their ideas as possible. But getting older at school, I sort of realized, well, being a copycat or even taking these wonderful ideas of these musicians and trying to develop them further or change them, adapt them, that doesn't fulfill me as a musician. As I wanted to also express my own personality individually,
Yeah,
individuality
sure.
in music. And so I became rather unhappy. That was about 1970. And thought, okay, the past is gone for me. I'm not going back. I didn't want to play these fast licks on the guitar anymore. The structures didn't make sense to me. But I didn't know any other musician who had similar ideas. I was not, there was not a network like nowadays. People know much more about what is happening around them through social media, and you can find out, I mean, it has its traps, of course, this overload of information, but you have the possibility of finding people who could even join, have the same idea. If you upload some music to some site and then you get feedback, you're connected. But back then I was isolated. I felt completely alone. And meeting Ralf Hütter and the other boys, I thought, wow, this is a dream come true, because it was clear from the very first minute, sort of, we had the same language we were taking our sources from. It was a Middle European root,
Yeah,
free from blues, no connection to blues, no jazz. It was music. You can, if you want to go into theories, you probably find out folk music roots, classical roots, but it was a Central European idea of melody and harmony.
yeah.
And so we jammed, and I thoroughly enjoyed throwing ideas around with Ralf Hütter. And the other boys, Florian and Klaus, were listening. And I think they had big ears at some point and thought, wait a minute, there's something in the air. And so we exchanged phone numbers, and I don't know, 2 weeks later, I was a member in the band. Funnily enough, without Ralf Hütter,
No.
because he had left. You may know that
Yeah. He left.
he left the band for, I don't know, half a year to return to university for that time.
And then, so with you were with Klaus only a short period of time, and then in Kraftwerk, and then the two of you formed the band Noia, right? And yeah, the two of you, and then why do you say, if you like the atmosphere of what Kraftwerk was doing, and you were happy, why you guys decided, Klaus and yourself, okay, let's form our own band, Noia, and then do something different? What was the reason of?
Um, well, I think it just moved in steps. At the beginning, I was totally thrilled because it was suddenly a professional world.
Yeah,
We had more than 1,000 people at the concerts.
yeah,
But the idea was to play songs from the first Kraftwerk album.
Yeah.
And although I took all the liberties, and Florian didn't object, I played my own parts and I didn't try to replace Ralf Hütter or replay his musical ideas, which you can hear on the original tracks on the album. But it was fine. It was very exciting, especially also musically, because Klaus Dinger was a great, great drummer. Such a force. I had never met anyone with that kind of determination and physical power at the drums. And Florian was also an amazing musician with exciting, crazy stuff on his electronic flute especially. And we had some very good nights. We had also some bad nights. I think because this was very improvised, spontaneous music.
Yeah.
And when the spirit was not good, there were fights going on, unfortunately, especially between Florian and Klaus, two very strong-headed and troubled, to a certain degree, troubled persons. So there were very good nights, okay nights, and also some less good nights we played. But then we tried to record the second Kraftwerk album and failed at that. And I mean, we tried with Conny Plank. That was the best choice, of course. Conny Plank, the producer who joined us for many years, especially also in my career. He was very important. But the excitement that the good concerts had, what couldn't be recreated in the studio, especially with the limitations of the material we had developed.
Yeah.
And so I think after 5 days or something like that, we realized that we were not going to finish an album. We were frustrated, of course, and because of the struggles that also were constantly in the air, Klaus Dinger and we talked about, well, we have more in common with one another than we have with Florian. And so Florian also wanted to end the collaboration, so it doesn't really matter who says where this is ending. We agreed on not wanting to continue. But then Klaus and I decided to just continue as a duo. It was clear that we wouldn't try to be a live band as a duo. That was something in those days. I don't know, even today it's very difficult, but then we talked to Conny Plank, and he was willing and also very willing, happy to work with us, because Conny Plank was sort of the equivalent on the technical side. He was crazy. He was totally fascinated about creating sounds, creating new mixing situations, and being creative at that. And so there were no limits to our experimentations. And so we were happy to go into the studio with him. It was, the only tricky part was that Klaus and I were poor people. We didn't have rich families like I think it's fair to say Florian and Ralf had as their backgrounds. And so we had to scratch all the money, get the money we could collect. And we put up 5,000 Deutschmarks because it was clear for us from the very beginning that we wouldn't approach a label. That's, I think, what many beginner bands or also today do, that they send a demo to a record label and then ask for a budget so that they can spend time in a professional studio. We wanted to be in control of the music, and so it was necessary to also pay the studio out of our own pockets.
Yeah, good.
And with, I think, with the help from above or from wherever, we were able to record the first Neue album in 5 nights. We worked at night. It was cheaper. You know, the studio rent was a lot cheaper at night than during the day. I actually hate working at night. I always hated that. I remember the second Neue album was also created and recorded in the winter time.
Yeah.
And it was dark when we got out of the studio, and it was dark when we went into the studio. Yeah. So when we woke up in the afternoon after sleeping, it was already dark again. And so it was always dark. This, I would nowadays, and already for many years, I would always avoid at all costs to work in darkness, you know, and not see daylight. But yeah, the experience with Conny Blank in the first Neue album, and then presenting the music to my family, to my girlfriend, and to the record label, and suddenly hearing people getting very, very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, both albums were very good. The one from '72, and then the other, the Neue, the album from '75. You got very good reception, you know.
Well, '75 was already the third Neue album. That was Neue '75.
Yeah.
And you're right. But in the beginning, like for the first time, when the first Neue album came out in early '72, it was great to go into the amusement district in Düsseldorf, where the record shops were, and to see the cover of the first Neue album everywhere, and also to pass some bars and some discotheques and to hear Hallo Gallo and Negative Land. That was quite a trip, quite an experience.
Yeah, Hallo Gallo was very well known, you know, even from the beginning, you know, so it was good.
Yeah, it gave a lot of boost. But then, of course, you probably lead to the next question, but it was, for me, it was very, what is it, rewarding collaboration with Klaus Dinger for a time. In the beginning, he was less complicated, if I may say it that way. You know, since he died, I am much more careful about giving comments on Klaus Dinger than before, because back then he could say in an interview, oh, Michael Rother is just telling rubbish. Now he's no longer able to defend his or justify his deeds, which at some point really hurt me and hurt Neu. But so I focus on the artistic quality of Klaus Dinger as my partner in Neu. And it was clear that the talents we both had, they met in the middle. So we had quite a big overlap in the middle, which enabled us to understand what the other one was going for. But still, each one of us had his specialities he was like a great drummer and also amazing at the microphone. Yeah. If you look at tracks like Hero, for instance, one of my favorite Neu tracks.
Yeah. And then after some years with Neu, you end up forming Harmonia with Hans Roedelius and Dieter Moebius. Those are big names, you know. I
Back
mean,
then, no.
well, but right back then, no, but nowadays, 40 years after, those people. But first of all, you knew, for example, who when you were doing guitar early 70s, you know who Manuel Goschi was and Tangerine Dream were popular at the time? Just,
I, well, the thing is, I stopped listening to other people's music.
I
That was
get you.
one of the steps I took to leave the past behind, and I wanted to focus on my
On your own
own
stuff, right?
right. And
Yeah, right.
so I knew that there were bands like Tangerine Dream, Ashra Temple, I don't know, maybe later. But I kept my ears more or less shut. So it
Yeah,
was very focusing on the inside of my own ideas. Yes, Roedelius and Moebius, I knew them because they also worked with Conny Plank.
yeah.
And we had a concert together when I was with Kraftwerk and with Cluster in Hamburg, which I will always remember because it was so dramatic. I don't know, do you want to hear the story? Do you know
Yeah,
this story?
of course.
Kraftwerk was, of course, the more famous of the two bands. Cluster was inside. It was an insider thing, and they were underground. But we were Democrats, very democratic. And when we were in the backstage area that evening in Hamburg, we played at the university. There was this hall with very steep acceleration, or how you say, to the upper regions. And we discussed, or we just said, well, should we start, or do you want to start? Like it was not the case that I think is generally the case. The more famous band comes on last. So the beginner or the experimental band comes on first, and then the big name comes last. And we let them choose, and they said, oh, well, you start. We'll come later. So they had more time to hang out in the backstage area and do whatever they wanted to do there. And that was a bad choice, a bad decision, because after Klaus Dinger, Florian Schneider, and I had wrecked the place with the heavy, rocky sounds, people didn't want us to stop. And so they kept on stomping and shouting. And we said, no, now please, this is Cluster, and left the stage. And so Cluster started playing very soft and abstract material. And the people were furious. I don't know, they were not ready for that. They wanted more of the hard stuff.
Yeah, wow.
And, yeah, and then they came down onto the stage, and they even disconnected the speakers of Cluster. And I thought, this is going to be violent. Now it's like, what is it? The storm of the Capitol. I mean, not that bad, but I was really troubled. And I thought, now they're going to beat them up, maybe? Did we cause this?
Wow.
Well, nothing happened in the end, but that was the moment when we had a certain bond, a special bond. And 2 years later, I remembered Cluster when Klaus Dinger and I wanted to put the Neu music on stage, and we needed musicians, and there were no musicians around that fit into the project. Nobody understood really the way we played and wanted to play. And then I thought, well, there's this music by Cluster. There's one track especially, I should give it a try. And so I visited them with the idea of jamming and then finding out whether Cluster would be the right addition to Klaus Dinger and me as a Neu live project. And then funny thing happened. I fell in love with that music. I jammed with Roedelius, and suddenly a new door opened. And I thought, well, this is the combination of his patterns on the electronic piano and my guitar. This was just like, perfect match. And so I decided to leave Neu behind for the moment. It was not, okay, the project is over, but I moved to Forst and joined Moebius and Roedelius there. And we started the project Harmonia, which inspired me. The exchange with Roedelius and Moebius was so important for the development of my ideas in the coming years. So I took a lot of profit. I hope, okay, Dieter Moebius is no longer around, but you may have heard that there's a project coming with samples and music by Dieter Moebius, or maybe not. Then you
No,
will hear.
I have not heard. I'm hopefully can interview him too.
Well, Dieter Moebius died 6 years ago,
Yeah.
but Roedelius is still around. And for me, the project Harmonia was not a side project. It was the main project for me between 73 and 76.
Yeah.
And I only started my solo career because the two guys in 76, after we had released 2 albums which were refused by the audience back then, neglected. People didn't understand what we were trying to express and what we wanted to say. We were struggling to, make ends meet financially. And so in 76, Roedelius and Moebius said, no, Michael, we're not going to continue this project with you. And so this was never my intention in my life to work on my own. But then I thought, okay, well, I have these ideas, these compositions. So I will talk to Conny Plank, and if he's willing, I will invite Jaki Liebezeit of Kern, who was my favorite drummer. Apart from Klaus Dinger, there was only Jaki Liebezeit for me, really. And luckily, both were very happy to work with me and ended up recording Flammende Herzen, and then a totally new chapter started.
Yeah, and in a way, that was the best thing that happened to you, because then you begin your solo career. At the moment you say, man, what I'm going to do, how I want to make money. But now looking back, that's the best thing that happened to you, opening your solo career, and the rest is history. You have done so well with.
Yeah, sometimes this is what my conclusion. Sometimes you have to accept that life has a detour in mind.
Yeah.
You have an idea, you are going for something, but life has different decisions.
Yeah.
And then you have to make sense of the new situation. And if you're lucky, it will be even better. The result will be even better. Then it also happens in creating music, that sometimes the stuff that happens unintentionally is much better than what you originally wanted to do.
Of course. And then after that, you Harmonia and Eno I think in 76 released the album Tracks and Traces, which is look at you, man. Eno, and then Roedelius, and man, people from Camp, people from Cluster. Man, you were playing with everybody, man. The best people now, At the time maybe they were not famous, but 40 years after, your parents should be very happy, your mom, you have played with the best people.
Yes, especially I'm happy, of course, about the music that we were able to create.
Yeah.
By the way, we recorded Tracks and Traces with Brian Eno in 76, but it was released many years later. Because it was not intended, it was not meant to be an album. It was just for people meeting in the studio because they had mutual respect and expected some creative moments. And so we recorded on my 4-track machine, and I think 15 years later or something like that, it was first released. And then in 2000s, I added 3 more tracks from a cassette mix, which I had made of the tapes, and released it with Grönland. And so, yeah, that's a document I also wouldn't want to miss in the catalog of music I'm involved or was involved in. Yeah.
And then 2 great albums came after that I listened to last night. Well, last night I listened to the album Deluxe with Harmonia, and also I listened to Firmware and Cancer Music. And Cancer Music, those are very good albums, very, very good albums.
I will not contradict you. Please don't expect me.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I think if you look at the development of the music, it sort of makes sense how songs like Hallo Gallo, Neuschnee, Easy, Deluxe lead to Flammende Herzen and Sterntaler and the stuff I did later. Yeah. But it was always exchanging ideas and developing ideas with other musicians that made this development possible. So I'm forever thankful for the opportunities to have worked with Conny Blank, Dieter Moebius, Klaus Dinger, Hans-Joachim Roedelius, and Brian Eno, of course, also. You probably know that the collaboration with David Bowie didn't happen.
Yeah, I like Brian Eno too. He's one of the masters. I mean, it's a lot of great people there. You know, as I mentioned to you before, I like your stuff. Of course, I like, Klaus Schulze, Manuel Gosch, in the Tangerine Dream, Peter Baumann, all that are very good people. They're Brian Eno, of course, and his brother. There's a lot of. And then another great album, Last, in '83. That was another, man. 3 back to back. The Casa Music, Firmworm, and then Last. Come on, man. You were one after the other, man. The other guys in sales, you did well, right? Vinyl selling at the time, no?
Yeah. Well, I can't complain. And I mean, since the 2000s, when finally Grönland Records re-released Neu worldwide, things have been going very well. It was not, how do you say, a start-finish winning run all the time. There were
little by little increasing,
Yeah, but there were also dents that led downwards, like the late 80s. People lost interest in the music, and the 90s were a bit strange and difficult. And then suddenly the echo of our music came back from the States via Sonic Youth or Stereolab England, and people in Germany that had forgotten our music, that we even existed. We were pushed aside by history, which happens, I guess. This is the new generation has new heroes, but then they started not inventing, rediscovering our music. The German audience and the audiences in America and Great Britain, they were already far ahead. Germany was a bit behind in that sense. And Neu being released worldwide, we've sold more albums than in the 30 years before, so. And with the chance to play live, I really cannot complain. I mean, sort of full circle now, but also my new collaborations. I guess I have every reason to be thankful for the opportunities that fate has given me to work on music and enjoy working on music, giving joy also to people.
You know, people like the, and then another two albums, Esperanza and Remember later on. And those, I mean, you did okay, man. You know, from
Yeah,
playing the guitar, you know, did a little bit of chord to, you know,
yes,
50
but
years
I think,
later. Yeah,
but you have to, I mean, you know, we're jumping over the years.
yeah,
Back then, there were albums that were very popular, and then
yeah,
suddenly there were albums which I liked in the same way. I was very happy about, but the people didn't like them. And
yeah,
so this history, which happened to Harmonia, first being rejected in the 70s, and since the 90s and 2000s, now Harmonia music is also accepted and around the world. This is a lesson sort of I learned, that you have to be willing and ready to accept that the audience doesn't always share your joy of music at the
yeah,
same time. They sometimes catch up, or maybe they lose the joy. Um, the main thing, I think, if you want to survive as a musician for a long time, is that you have to have your own compass. You have to have your aim, which is not dependent on what the audience is telling you at a certain time. It has to be your compass, which tells you, this is where I'm going. And then you have to accept that they sometimes follow you and sometimes they don't.
yeah. That's unfortunate. That's if you can name, you know, your three as a musician now, looking back, right, 50 years later, looking back, there were any particular musician or influences that you look back and say, man, those that album with that person or that band really make a big impact on my life. You know, looking back now, is anyone
I
in
think,
particular?
no, not really. I think all of these
All of them,
people
yeah, yeah,
we've talked about, they had such an important influence on my thinking about music. And Dieter Moebius still keeps popping up in my mind at night. Sometimes suddenly he's alive and I talk to him. And I know that the special different approach to music that Dieter Moebius had compared to mine,
yeah,
we were struggling. You know, it was like disagreeing and trying to find the right solution. But working with these talented musicians paved the way for me.
yeah,
So
sure.
I wouldn't pick one on top of one
Well,
other.
yeah, many. What any if looking back at your career, any memorable concert that you have played that stay in your mind forever? It was a crazy one or the best one. You went home, you went to the hotel and say, man, this is the best I have ever played in my life. Everything worked out, the weather, the lights, you know, the atmosphere, the crowd. The crowd is very important, you know. I mean, you know,
Yes,
anyone or
there
some
are
that you
there are quite a few concerts really,
yeah,
luckily, which will stick in my mind. I don't even want to put one higher than the other. I know
yeah,
that the concert I played in 2010 at the Lincoln Center in New
yeah,
York
wow,
City,
yeah, wow,
with Steve Shelley and Aaron Mullen. It was a project we called, or I called, Hallo Gallo 2010.
hmm,
That was a very special, I think there were 5,000 people, and
yeah,
I remember it was a warm summer evening and the wind sort of lifted my guitar notes, and it was a great experience. But there are also wonderful experiences playing in Sydney Harbor on an island at ATP, All Tomorrow's Parties, and yeah, really many memories.
wow, that's great. Do you plan? So what is uh you know coming out from you? It's you hopefully with the concert that you mentioned in the September, is things open up, you you prefer to be on the road and then do, I don't know, 20, 30 gigs a year, or you like more studio? Yeah, how does it work? What's a good balance for you between, personal life, right? You don't want to leave, go to hotel, plane, no enjoy life, and then studio work. What's a good balance for Michael? So.
Yeah, sorry. I have to, because I have another appointment
Oh, you need
coming.
to get going. Yeah, good.
Sorry, yeah, I just checked. So a few minutes I can still continue.
Yeah.
I don't think that I need to do extensive tours like,
Yeah.
and I actually never enjoyed playing back-to-back concerts, like
Yeah. Yeah.
coming off the stage, dropping into the hotel bed, getting up, driving to the next concert and playing again.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I prefer to experience also the travel and the places I visit, and then maybe even stay a day or two or longer. I sometimes did that. In Buenos Aires, I stayed a full week, and Japan also, and China, Australia. So, it's not only running up to the stage and off the stage every day. This is not my idea of life. I would like to focus on all kinds of aspects, like also working in the studio or at home with my partner or
Yeah.
alone. And but then in the end, of course, like I already said, life or fate sometimes makes decisions, and you have to try to make sense of, okay, then now that we have a pandemic, no more concerts, okay, then I will do more recording music, which for a while I thought I wouldn't want to do, And, but I also hope that, I'm not sure whether there's any justification for hope, but I would really love to return to the States and to play to American audiences, but that would require some really big change and favorable decisions to make the visa nightmare go away and make it. When I remember, sorry, I'm jumping, but I remember a time when there were the borders in Europe, and you had to drive up to the border, show your passport, and then the barrier was lifted or the car was searched, whatever. And then there came the time when you're driving around Europe, and then you're thinking, are we already in France? Oh yeah, we're in France. Oh yeah, now we're in Belgium, now we're in Spain. And no borders, nobody checking. This is some kind of liberation, I think.
Of course. Yeah.
And yeah, and to be able to play, also in Europe without carnet, without visa. Now the stupid Brexit has hit us because of some really bad decisions by, I don't know, doubtful not musicians, politicians. And this will make playing in the UK difficult, but also the US. Those I think the reason for these regulations, this trying to keep people, not only Mexicans from entering the States away, just foreigners, they should stay away. They're taking our jobs. This is probably some union thing which went the wrong way. The union protecting local musicians from getting challenged by cheaper musicians coming from Europe. I think that was maybe the original idea of trying to protect their own culture. This is, I can understand this to a certain extent, but this idea has long gone wrong. And so if you have someone you can talk to, please help change that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree with you, Michael. I know the fee that you need to pay to be a working musician in the United States, and it's very, very expensive. So you need to schedule at least 5 to 10 gigs to make it work well, because it's very expensive, the fee, and so it's a crazy nightmare. So for me, I'm a consumer of your music, so hopefully, you know, I will be able to meet you one day and shake hands, take a couple pictures, and then see you playing live, man. I love your music, man. So it was very nice talking to you, Michael. And hopefully down the road, when you have more time, we can do a part 2 interview, a follow up. And I'm very interested in getting your music. So I will when I finish the recording, I will send you a link, and I'm very interested in recording all the CD
Sorry,
boxes that you have and so on and so forth. So
Claudia, I lost the image.
I'm still here.
Yes, I know, but let me see.
No, sure.
I would
I can
like
see
to
you.
see you.
I can see you. I'm able to see you.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Yes, so anyway, it was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, maybe we'll have a chance to meet if things develop in the right direction.
Got you.
And
And I will send you another email, because I'm very interested in getting all your music, all the CD boxes that you did, 1 of 5 and 6. I'm very interested to get it. So I will send you. Thank you very much again, Michael, for your time, your great music. You are a very good guy, and you know, keep on working hard, and hopefully we'll see you in the States, not in Europe, and maybe playing in Berlin or something, you know, like that.
okay, Claudio, thank
Take
you
it
very
easy.
much.
Thank you very
And
much.
have
Appreciate
a nice day.
it. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Michael. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.